All right, guys, we're back here. We're going to get the second half of this lesson and everything. We had talked about Article 1, which was all about the legislative branch. Legislative branch, again, that is what we call Congress. You got half of it, House of Representatives, half of it is Senate. Once again, House of Representatives based on the representation of your population, and that's also where you get your electoral number of votes. And then the Senate side, 2 per state. The whole reason is to balance big state and small state and make it fair for everybody. On Article 2 was all about the president. We talked about how he is the commander in chief. He can make treaties. He chooses the judges, but once with the check and balance again, you've got the Senate being able to approve his appointments and his judges and things like that. So, last thing about the executive branch, and then we're on to Article 3, is an impeachment. We've had several presidents brought up on impeachment: Clinton, Johnson, Trump. A bunch of were brought up on it. Only one has ever been impeached. And actually, he even quit before that. That was Nixon. He was going to be impeached and everything like that. So but impeachment, what it is a way, once again, with the checks and balances, that you could get rid of a president. But here's the thing. I want you all to understand: impeachment means they've committed a crime. You can't just impeach somebody because you don't like them. As soon as somebody gets in office lately, you just see impeach them, impeachment. They've not committed a crime. And so you can't impeach somebody without a crime. And impeach means to basically kick them out, vote them out and everything. It's not throwing peaches at them. That would be a better way to handle it. Honestly, that would be fun. We call that fruit salad. We just throw peaches at the president. But what's interesting about this part is when they impeach them, if they brought them up on a crime, the senators serve as the jury. And so once again, you've got the check and the balance where the president can't just do whatever he wants because the Senate could bring him down. They are the ones that would have to vote on it. And it's hand in hand going back and forth. The Senate can't get too powerful because the president has the right to veto anything when they start to. It's that whole checks and balances. You'll hear that so many times brought up. It comes really interesting in a Federalist paper number 51, written by James Madison, is the one that discusses checks and balances. That will be a test question. 51. Checks and balances. You need to know that. One other one I'd like to mention real quick is Federalist Paper number 10 before we move on. Federalist Paper number 10 was also written by James Madison. And what it talks about, I think we need to hear more than anything. It talks about political factions will be what destroys America, and we've got to stop political factions. Even Washington was against political parties. He wanted people to run on what their ideas and their beliefs. And it seems like today's politics, we don't identify by our ideas and our beliefs. We identify by our political party. And we sell out to that political party and not to our ideals and beliefs. And I believe James Madison, George Washington, all these early guys were right on the nose in Federalist Paper number 10 when they said, if we get into political parties, we're going to destroy America. And I think we're headed down that road. Whether you're right or whether you're left on those, we've got to get back to where we're looking at the person and their ideals. In fact, not this election, but the last election in my class, we went to a website to where you just looked at what the candidates believed and you picked what you believed, and then it told you which candidates you liked. And a lot of my kids were shocked by who they liked or who they didn't like. And I just wish we could get back to that today. But now we are on into Article 3. So here we go. Article 3 is the judicial branch. The judicial branch, I want you to get this, they interpret the laws. Who comes up with the laws is Congress. Who decides yes or no is the president. And then if anything happens, it goes to the Supreme Court or to a court, and they interpret what you mean. Interpreting what you mean basically goes like this. If on the Second Amendment says you have the right to bear arms, and then it goes to the Supreme Court about, does that mean fully automatic or semi-automatic? they can decide you can still have your gun, but it can't be fully automatic. And that's what's happened today is you can't own a fully automatic gun, but you can own a semi-automatic. You can own lots of types of guns, but certain ones they've clamped down, and the court feels that's within their right because they're interpreting what does it mean. All we've got is the words bear arms. Do not arm bears. Please do not go out during hunting season and start giving them guns. That will not help anybody. All right. And for those of you in short sleeves, that's what it does not mean either. Not bear arms. It's a different. It's just trust me on this one. It means owning a gun. All right. So the other things, they interpret the laws. They judge whether the laws are constitutional. Our Congress could pass a law saying nobody's allowed to have guns anymore. And then the president could give it a yes stamp. And it goes to the Supreme Court and they look at it and say, I'm sorry, back here, number 2 says you're allowed to own a gun. So that's unconstitutional. And then they can throw it out and bypass Congress and bypass the president on this. That gives them a check and balance. Now, are they making any laws or suggesting any laws? No. So their check and balance is if either Congress or the president gets out of thing, they can shut them down. This is just sheer genius. We need to cling to this Constitution and value it and see it for what it is one of the greatest documents in history. To think so much ahead of time that you could figure out how to take 3 branches of government and then check each other and have to help each other and have to get along to make one form of government work. It's amazing. It really is. So they judge whether things are unconstitutional. They resolve disputes under the laws. They'll resolve between state by state and stuff like that. You'll see states sue each other. You won't remember this because you were probably just a little toddler and everything at the time, but it's been about maybe 12 years ago, 13 years ago, something like that. Georgia actually was trying to sue the state of Tennessee because the original boundaries for Tennessee were messed up when they put them in. And Georgia actually should have had a little part of the Tennessee River, just a tip of it right there into their section. And they were trying to sue to take rights to the Tennessee River. And then they were going to pump it and try and take the water to Atlanta for the people down there. They were going to literally pump dry our river to help Atlanta is what their goal was to get what. And the court stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. It was in the news for a little while and then it went away because this court said you can't do that. But that was between a state and a state. If you would have took that to a state Supreme Court, depending on which state you took it to, it would have went that way. Take it to Georgia, yeah, they got rights to the water. Take it to Tennessee, yeah, they don't have right to the water. Take it to a Supreme Court, take it to a district court, and all of a sudden you're going to have a different thing. And so that's why they'll resolve disputes, even if they're under law and they seem more, they will fix those problems. There are several levels of court. There is a picture right there of the Supreme Court. If you go to Washington, D.C., you need to one day, you'll see the White House about in the middle of the National Mall. At one end of the National Mall is the Congress building and everything where you've got the Senate and the House of Representatives. One street behind it, you go one street behind it and you're looking at that building right there, which is the Supreme Court. They have several branches of court. You have local courts. And all these, I'll help you understand real quick. A local court is a county court, a city court, a state court. If somebody in Madisonville got in trouble for doing something, four-wheeling on, somebody else's land, out there, doing things people in Monroe County do to get themselves in trouble, you're not going to federal court on something like that. You're going to go to a local court where the judge was probably in the truck with you while you were coon hunting out there tearing up somebody else's field. So you will start at a local level court. We have those. You go right down Madisonville, and you can see where our local court is at since we're the county seat and everything like that. And let's say, once again, you got in trouble. You're coon hunting on somebody's property, tearing it up with a four-wheeler, and you get in trouble and you go to the local court and they find you guilty. You have the right to take it to an appellate court. An appellate court will look at that situation. Maybe the judge, especially in a small town like this, might have been the dad of your ex-girlfriend or something, and he ruled harshly on you, and you can prove that. You can take it to appellate court. They can overturn it. They can look at it again. That was so intelligent of our founding forefathers to realize you could have, just like you can have a bad anything, insert any occupation right here, and you can have a bad somebody. If you had a bad judge in one situation, we have a way out. We have an appellate court. Now, if the appellate court has dealt with it and everything, and there's still some issues, you can take it to a district court. A district court will deal a lot with federal cases and everything like this. There are 9 districts. They call them circuits, 9 circuits. We are in the 6th circuit. You'll hear a lot of times the 9th circuit brought up. That's out in California. But we are the 6th circuit. So you've got your local court, could be Madisonville, your appellate court, could be up in Knoxville, and then all of a sudden your district court could be another state, but it's in our district because there's only 9 circuits right there. So there's not every state has its own. They're just one for every couple states. If you still have a problem there, you could take it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has 9 judges. You need to know that. And they are appointed for life. Once they're on till the end. And that's a form of checks and balance because this president gets 4 years, a representative gets 2, a senator gets 6, and then the judge, they have to be voted on by these people. The president has to pick the judge, and then the representatives in the Senate, they have to approve the judge. Once they've approved the judge, even if the president changes or the next group comes in and changes, that shouldn't change. That judge was put there by the president and by Congress because they voted on it. They're there. They're there. Though even I have heard them say, well, impeach that judge. If he does commit a crime, once again, a crime is why you impeach somebody. But if he hasn't done anything wrong, they're there for life. And some of them will go for a long time. That's why if you watch a lot of presidents, when they try and appoint a younger one because then they've had their judge there for a long time. They will receive thousands of cases a year, and they will actually have people that sit down and review the cases and then pick the main important cases. If your bicycle was stolen and you took it to the appellate, it ain't going to the Supreme Court. I'm sorry, I hate to tell you. They are going to take the top 100 cases, usually every session, every time they're in, they get about 100 cases per year. And they've got to be something big, something important. And they'll weed out those, and then those go before those 9 judges. Those 9 judges have to each give their own opinion. They have to write it up. I mean, it's public record of what they thought and then they will look at those, and then they will make a determination on 5-4, 6-3, things like that. So the Supreme Court, it's an amazing system. You've got to give these founding fathers credit for where they set it up. 2, 4, 6, life, and then check and balance, It's a genius system of how to handle all these things. Last one, judicial review is when they declare a law unconstitutional, and they have to explain why it was. Once again, if all of a sudden the president and the Congress said guns are illegal, they could do a judicial review on that, and then that would declare it unconstitutional. Does not, once again, what is the final say in all of this? It is the Constitution. There it shows you, it's just a breakdown. You can see right there on your notes showing you county courts, circuit courts, district courts, Supreme Courts, or if you're just interested in just courting. Some of you won't get that joke at all. It's just a wasted joke. It's a wasted joke. Sorry. All right, moving on. Checks and balances. Checks and balances. This is why we've divided everything into these 3 branches and everything. It allows one branch to check on the other, allows one branch to stop any of the others. How this works, the president, he can veto a bill from Congress. Congress, he doesn't like what they're doing. He stamps it, veto, sends it back. That's a no from him. He's checked on them. But Congress could override the president if 2/3 of Congress, once again, that's the majority of the people, basically, more than the majority, it's 2/3. If they think the president was wrong in that, they can override the president. But if they override the president, then the Supreme Court can look at them and say, that was unconstitutional if it's something that breaks the Constitution. So you have the president having powers here, and then the judicial king and stuff. It all sets up the checks and balance to where not one power can get more powerful than the other. And it's an amazing way to run a country. Another form of checks and balance, the president can appoint a judge or a cabinet member, but the Senate has to approve them. And then if they're doing something wrong, Congress can impeach them. Congress can impeach either a president or a judge. Once again, not if they did not like them. If they say, ooh, that's not my guy, you cannot impeach them. But if they've broke a law, they've done something they shouldn't, you can impeach them, and this gives Congress power basically over the judges and the presidents. But once again, you see how it flows right back around to where the president can override Congress and then Congress can. It is a very delicate system of checks and balances. All right. Is that making sense? How they can watch each other, they can check on each other, and they can balance each other. All right. There it shows the checks and balances going back and forth. Take a few moments and read this. I'll pause. And we're back again. Okay, really, I don't know how to do the technical things. It's Miss Peak. It's Miss Peak that pauses it. I just got to say, she spends half her day having to clean up what I've said. So a lot of times you'll see me make a joke, because you know my jokes. I always joke about in class, and I make fun of that town, where all the people, and then Miss Peak has to come in and clean this up and edit over those things like that. She'll probably have to do that right there, So you got to. I'm leaving that. You got to thank Miss Peak for all her time in editing. But I'll tell you one thing about Miss Peak: she won't edit out. Yeah, on a Tuesday. Yeah, I hope she doesn't edit that out.
I will fight.
All right, so let's keep going now. Let's look at Article 4, full faith and credit. This is what helps the states to work together. Remember, all of this is because they saw the Articles of Confederation did not work. If you remember what happened with the Articles of Confederation, Massachusetts was under trouble with Shays' Rebellion, and they said, help us, Connecticut. And Connecticut said, nah, that's okay. Help us, Rhode Island. Not really interested. And full faith and credit is something they put in there that upholds the fact these states are going to work together. First one is it upholds a court decision. That's why you see people getting taken from one state and sent to another, where somebody will rob a bank in Pennsylvania, flee to Tennessee, they get caught down here. We will escort that person back to Pennsylvania to be tried. States will send their criminals back to each other. It's a common thing that happens all the time, because if we didn't have that, you could commit a crime right in Chattanooga and go right across the border into Georgia and you're free and get it. That would make a crazy nation. So we have to have this full faith and credit to where we will uphold court decisions made in other states. And it also creates a common marketplace. If you remember, another problem with the Articles of Confederation was the fact that as soon as it started, they didn't have to work with the states. And if you remember, Connecticut raised its price on cabbage. Why? I don't get that. Why? Raise the price on cabbage. No one wants it. But you could raise the price on, and then New Jersey raised its price on firewood for Connecticut. And they were hurting each other's states. We can't do that to each other anymore. We have a single national economy. And the roads then connect all the states. You could get in your car and drive down to Georgia. You're not going through a checkpoint to go into Georgia. Why you want to go to Georgia? I don't know. But you don't have a border crossing or anything like that. We have an interstate system that you can produce a product. Coke is made in Georgia, and they can take it right up here to Tennessee. Mountain Dew is made in North Carolina, and they can take it right over here to Tennessee. We can ship stuff around without having problems because we have Article 4, which gives us full faith and credit. Also, not only just taking things state to state, you can have a company that's in several states. Amazon is not in one state. Amazon is in New York. Amazon is in Tennessee. Amazon is in California. Amazon is in, Oregon? That is one business that is in multiple states, and they're able to do this. Not if you were over in Europe, you couldn't do this because you would be in different countries, even in the same proximity. But here we have Article 4, which lets goods and resources flow across the country, which lets businesses operate, which helps us to travel. This is just to be able to see that they realized this was one of the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation, and to be able to go ahead and change it to where it's already into our Constitution that we have full faith and credit. Article 4 also deals with the elections. It sets the national dates. It sets the electoral college. I know you are hearing a lot today with people saying, oh, get rid of the electoral college. Go with the popular vote. Go with the popular vote. That would be the worst thing that ever happened to this country. And let me explain it to you just using our county. Okay. And I'm not going to make jokes about other schools, and I get upset. All right. But just using our county, let's say that in our county, Sweetwater is the biggest city, and we had 1,000 people live in Sweetwater. And then the other three areas, Von Orr, Tellico, Madisonville, each had 300 people that live in them. So you've got 1,000 in Sweetwater and 900 throughout the rest of the huge area, the rest of the county. If we let popular vote win, Sweetwater would have 100% say in everything that goes on in the county, because that's where most of the people live. They would have all the good roads. They would have laptops at their school. They would have everything. And the rest of the county would be just suffering. Now, you can't do that. You can't put one little population area in charge of the rest of the huge area. If you look once again at an electoral map, there you see certain areas, big cities that are blue, and then you'll see huge sections of the country that are red. And population, it's about even almost. But if you just went with those population areas, they could change anything they wanted. You need to balance out the rest that live in the rural areas and the population. So if you just went population vote, it would serve one group of people. If you make them balance, should they have more say with they have 1,000 more people? Yes, they should get more, but they shouldn't get everything. And that's why we have an electoral college, because a state like Tennessee, which does not have the population as California, we don't get the same say, but we do get a say. And without that, we'd be lost. So it sets the electoral college. It sets dates. It also registers votes, and it counts votes by state then. All right. Article 5, this is the amendment process. They refer to the Constitution as a living document, which is a test question. Look right there. Do you see the little thing right there? You see? I see it. I see it. I know you see it. All right. It's a test question. It says Constitution is a living document. Does that mean you're going to see a horror movie called Constitution 2, The Reckoning? Roar! And the Constitution coming in like that? No, it's not a living document where it's, I'm going to paper cut you. That'd be a great movie. I'm just going with it. But it being a living document refers to that it is a breathing, changing. It changes document. Does that make sense? That it can change over time, not that it's actually alive, but is referred to as a living document, because if all of a sudden we decided to change something, if we have enough votes, we can change something on it. But it's got to be what America wants. There is a process to go through with this. The process to go deals a lot with majority rule. That's a test question number 8. A majority rule deals with what the people want. So let's say we decide to change a part of our Constitution. I keep using amendment number 2 because it makes half my boys pay attention all of a sudden when I do. So let's say we decide to get rid of guns, okay? What would first have to happen is 2/3 of Congress. We're not talking 50%. Go back to what the other way. 2/3 of Congress would have to say, hey, let's get rid of guns. All right. And once they did that, Congress has decided, you know what? That's a good idea. This is the part I love. It's no longer dealing with Washington. Congress has decided we want to get rid of guns. We're getting rid of guns. President passed that. Yes, let's get rid of guns. Guess what? Now it heads to the states. And I'm not talking your House of Representatives. I literally mean your state legislators. We have in Nashville, our capital, a state legislator, which we send local representatives up there and they make laws for Tennessee. If all of a sudden we are changing the Constitution and 2/3 of Congress wants it, it's proposed. And then it goes to the states. And this is the part I love. Not 3/4 of the population and not 3/4 of the states have to agree that that's a good idea. So you may have a huge population center, let's say Los Angeles, New York, they want to get rid of guns because they see crime with it. And it goes to the states, and down in Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama, we see hunting with it. Then we're going to protect our rights for the guns. It's no longer what they think in Congress. It's what your local representatives think. That's why when the 19th Amendment comes about, giving the women the right to vote and everything, and it came down to a single state, Tennessee, and it was in our legislators, and that's why right over there is Harry Byrne, who was the deciding vote. We're talking local people, guys, that help get to decide. It is no longer a Congress thing. If you are iffy of politicians and worried about them, to amend this living document, it goes to the states. And so right there it shows amendment can be proposed if 2/3 of the Congress is for it, or if 2/3 of the state legislators are all pushing for something, then Congress has to look at it. But for it to be ratified, 3/4 of state legislators. It's a majority rule. The decision represents what most of the people want. If 75% of our states wanted to change something on the document, then the other 25% are just going to have to go with it. But I love that it's not states. I mean, that it's not representatives. It's not population. It is states. That helps you balance, once again, states' rights, big states, small states' rights. Now, jumping into the first 10 amendments, they were what we call the Bill of Rights. They were immediately added. When the Constitution is done, they immediately go in and add our rights, because these people had gone through all the taxation without representation. They had gone through the sugar tax and the quartering act and things like that. These people didn't want to deal with that anymore. They wanted to know, I have rights. Your first 10 amendments are what's called your Bill of Rights. We are going to stop right here because it is gone for another 25 minutes, and I will finish up later for you, but that way you are getting your lessons. I know it's a little boring right now because I can't really make fun of the children in there, although I see you right there and I'm making, you, and I know I can't hack on the other people around the cities and the other teachers, but let me tell you something about another teacher. Let me tell you about I love how Carrie's got all this editing to do with that. Yeah. So, all right. Miss you guys. Looking forward to seeing y'all back. We'll talk to you again later.